Hello, welcome to Granada Reports, live with the latest across the northwest.
Hello, many thanks for joining us on the programme this evening.
Mayors united, the Labour leaders calling on the government to stick to its promise to build the North's high-speed rail link to London. But as the Conservatives prepare for their party conference in Manchester next week, is anyone listening?
I would have thought that members of the Conservative Party will be asking the leadership what is going on.
An inquest reveals how Kelly died during a cold water therapy session. A coroner says he's concerned the industry isn't regulated.
If you've ever wondered who Accrington Stanley are, they are the club who gave away 1,000 football shirts plus match tickets to some very happy children.
Set in the roaring 20s, a new play, Earwig, shows the fight to be heard when you're deaf and have an overbearing husband.
And our first named storm of the season, Storm Agnes, has arrived. I'll be back later on in the programme with all the latest details.
First, 5 city mayors and one big message for the Prime Minister.
Yes, Andy Burnham and Steve Rotherham from our region have joined forces with the 2 mayors from Yorkshire and Sadiq Khan from London. They say the government must commit to the high-speed rail link from London to Manchester.
In recent weeks, ministers have admitted they are looking to cut costs, with the northern section of HS2 linking Birmingham to Manchester strongly tipped to be axed or at best delayed.
Well, again today, the government's refused to rule that out. In this report from Emma Sweeney, we'll hear from those mayors, but also from those who actually want HS2 scrapped.
We have lots of amphibians here, lots of butterflies, wetland, fantastic plant species, and we've also got some ancient woodland just over there as well.
Rachel Giles has dedicated her life to protecting nature and biodiversity. And in recent years, she's been assessing the impact HS2 would have on the Cheshire countryside.
All this site would disappear, plus the next 3 fields, which are very similar to this. So the impacts are incredibly severe for wildlife, and yeah, we're concerned obviously that they've not been taken account of properly.
So concerned that earlier this year, Rachel authored a report. It claimed the company responsible for building the high-speed railway had underestimated its impact on local wildlife. The company itself disagreed. Nonetheless, Rachel's pleased with this week's headlines, suggesting there may now be plans to scrap the northern leg of the project between Birmingham and Manchester.
We think that this could give an opportunity for it to be re-looked at again. And I just want to reiterate that the Wildlife Trust are very much pro-sustainable transport, so we're not against the principle of HS2, it's the way that it's been done.
Most of Britain's railway network was built over 100 years ago. The same network is still used today and was never designed to run as many services as it does.
But while Rachel may be relieved, others are not. HS2 was always billed as a way of levelling up the north, with a promise to boost growth and create jobs. But with rumours the plans could be about to derail, 5 of the country's Labour mayors have now come together to issue a joint plea.
I say to the government, you must not take a decision of this magnitude without at least giving us the opportunity to have some input and to have our say, and to make the case for modern transport infrastructure, north, south and east, west in the north of England. If you leave us trapped with Victorian rail infrastructure for the rest of this century, while the southern half of the country has modern lines, north, south and east, west, well, that is genuinely a recipe for the north-south divide to become just a huge chasm in this country.
And if the government does go back on its word, it would almost certainly scupper plans for a northern powerhouse rail, which is meant to be connecting Liverpool to Hull.
And without that north-south link, we can't get from Liverpool to Manchester to Leeds, Sheffield and to Hull through Northern Powerhouse Rail, because there's huge gaps in that was filled in by HS2 infrastructure.
So far, the government itself has not clarified whether or not their plans have been cancelled. With a lack of firm information, the Culture Secretary was asked earlier whether those in Westminster had heard the concerns of the Labour mayors.
Well, it's always important for the Prime Minister and the Chancellor to listen to the views of those in positions as well as to the country as a whole. But I know the Chancellor is looking very carefully at how do we protect taxpayers' money and major projects, and that is, of course, a question for him.
A question it seems he's in no immediate hurry to answer, with speculation it could be November before the government makes any announcement. In the meantime, many up north already believe we could be about to witness a rail betrayal. Emma Sweeney, ITV News.
Well, joining us now is Henry Murison from the Northern Powerhouse Partnership. That's a group of business and civic leaders across the north of England. First of all, I think it's fair to say a lot of people are sick of hearing about HS2, the costs and the delays. How likely do you think it will ever happen?
I'm still confident that the full line will be built from Birmingham to Manchester, as was originally envisaged, giving the benefits not just people in Manchester, but obviously across the West Coast Main Line, because people as far as Carlisle, people in Preston, will also get much improved journey times, but more importantly, more frequent and reliable services. And after the debacle at Preston Station because of a failure in infrastructure, just I think a couple of nights ago, hopefully people will realise how important it is to have modern, high quality infrastructure that people can rely on. So I'm really confident we'll still deliver it. And I believe one of the most important reasons, as you heard in the package, is because without HS2, as Steve Rotherham said, it's impossible to get trains from Warrington and from Liverpool across the Pennines to Leeds and up to the northeast of England. And that vision of creating a north of England where people could commute to where you live, you are in Salford from where I am tonight in Yorkshire, could do that without a car. I don't know anyone who works at Granada, for example, who lives in Yorkshire, who ever gets the train to work. And that's the point. We want to make it so people, not just journalists, but anyone that works in Manchester, works in Liverpool and lives over this side of the Pennines can get to where you are tonight. I couldn't have easily got to you by public transport. That's why I'm speaking to you from Yorkshire. I couldn't get to Manchester tonight because it was too difficult and taking too long. That's the whole problem. That's why we've got need a fantastic transport system. That's what was promised by Boris Johnson, and we need to deliver it.
But during the COVID pandemic, we got used to working online so much. Is there still the need to get to London faster?
I mean, HS2, the most unimportant thing about it is you get to London faster. Hannah O'Loughlin from the Sunday Times, their northern correspondent, was travelling back last Sunday with a train full of people, overcrowded from Birmingham. Those Birmingham services, there's nowhere near enough capacity. So it's also about getting to Birmingham, bluntly, and obviously between Manchester and Crewe more easily. There's also that important point about Northern Powerhouse Rail. There is nowhere near enough trains across the Pennines. The M62 is so congested because there isn't enough capacity. And this network isn't just about going north-south. It's about going east-west as well. And that's why I'm so passionate about the fact we need to deliver it in full. Because as the Mayor said today, and as I discussed yesterday with Bev Craig, who was in Leeds, meeting with my board, with a group of business leaders who are concerned about these changes, if we're going to grow the northern economy and make it more productive, we need to be able to move people and goods around. And we need to get fast trains off the West Coast Main Line so we can get lorries off the M6 and onto the conventional rail system, which, because lorries, remember, are the hardest thing to decarbonise. So from an environmental perspective, of course, there is an impact from building this. But if we have to build more roads, carpet bomb the northwest with roads to meet our growing economy instead, you would have to build 18 lanes of motorway to give the equivalent capacity of phase 2B. And I'm afraid that would do a lot more ecological damage than 2 lines of railway track will. However unfortunate that may be, that is a much better solution for the person that you heard in that package.
Well, we hear what you're saying there, and you have touched on this, but many of the commuters that we speak to, they just want trains to run reliably and on time. And of course, the point that you make is very valid about freight, but what about the trains already operating by Avanti, Northern and TransPennine? Shouldn't that be the priority?
So I think that you should be able to hold a conversation and walk down the street at the same time. What I mean by that is it's not too much to expect of the government that they can make sure that TransPennine hire enough drivers. And that's why we've got a problem on TransPennine, and why every time there's action short of full industrial action where drivers stop doing overtime, suddenly trains are cancelled, they don't have enough drivers. So I think that the rail industry should be expected to sort those problems out. And as the government is ultimately in charge of in particular the detail of how TransPennine is run now that there's no longer First Group involved. That's for the Rail Minister, Hugh Merriman, to sort out.
Okay.
I think at the same time they should invest in the future, and that's vital if Manchester, Liverpool, the rest of the northwest of England is to fulfil its economic potential.
Okay. Henry Murison from the Northern Powerhouse Partnership, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Mike.
Not the last that we've heard of it. OK, well, let's move on tonight. Next, a coroner has said that he is concerned about the lack of regulation on certain types of therapy after the death of a young mother from Greater Manchester during a session which involved her being submerged in a river.
Kelly Poole, who was 39, died last year after the cold water appeared to trigger an undiagnosed heart condition.
The coroner, though, didn't blame the company running the session for Kelly's death, but did raise concerns.
Our reporter Jamal Williams-Thomas was at the inquest in Chesterfield.
This inquest today ended with Coroner Peter Nito expressing his concern that companies like this that offer cold water therapy treatments and things such like are not regulated, and actually he'll be writing to the appropriate bodies to express those very concerns. However, he did say, and I quote, there was no evidence why the cold water treatment should not have proceeded, adding that the outcome was not affected by the running of the session. That outcome was, of course, the very sad and sudden death of Kelly Poole from Droylsden. It was in April last year that she attended a cold water therapy session run by a firm called Breatholution. Now it involved her and others taking a dip in the River Goyt in the High Peak. That day the water was around 10 degrees Celsius. Yesterday the inquest heard how Miss Poole had attended with two of her friends who had bought her the experience as a gift. Now before entering the water, everybody was asked verbally if they had any health issues, but no waivers were signed. It's worth mentioning that as a sole trader, Mr. O'Neill is under no obligation to have any signed waivers or risk assessments for this type of activity. Now after that, Miss Poole entered the water with the group, and after some moments she complained of a migraine, collapsed, and despite CPR attempts, she sadly could not be revived. The court was also told that Ms. Poole had an undiagnosed heart condition. Evidence was heard that her heart was significantly heavier than normal and that her left ventricle heart wall was thickened. Now the owner of Breatholution, Kevin O'Neill, said yesterday he didn't think that there was anything that could have been done to prevent Miss Poole's death. The coroner delivered a conclusion of sudden cardiac arrhythmia due to the thickening of the heart muscles due to immersion in cold water, and he added it is likely that the heart condition prevented recovery. Mr. Nito then ended by offering his condolences to Miss Poole's family, who sat in the court here in Chesterfield throughout the 2 days of evidence.
More of the day's news, and the Manchester United footballer Antony has returned to the UK from Brazil and is expected to meet with Greater Manchester Police over allegations of violence. The 23-year-old's been on a leave of absence since September the 10th after facing several accusations of physical aggression towards his ex-girlfriend Gabriella Cavallin. Antony denies all the allegations.
Well, next up, Storm Agnes madness has reached the Isle of Man. It's expected to be here later. On the island, strong winds have already reached up to 80 miles an hour. The Isle of Man Steam Packet Company has confirmed it won't be operating between Douglas and Liverpool due to this poor weather. A yellow warning for wind is in place on the island and for much of the northwest until 7 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Well, let's get more on this now from Joe, who's joined us in the studio. Joe, the fact this has been given a name, does it mean it's a big storm?
Yes, it's very early in the season, so some of us might be caught out. I think that's why they've named it. Also, the impacts are going to be very much felt along Irish Sea coast. So it's our part of the world. As you can see, the Isle of Man already feeling those impacts this afternoon and this evening. Gusts there over the next few hours could peak at around 75 miles an hour. That means huge waves. Of course, lots of trees still in full foliage as well, so that's another issue. They've named it because many of us still have our garden furniture out. We're just not really winter prepped yet, are we? So it could catch us out. And the next few hours, it will be accompanied by really heavy rain. Lots of people on the roads, difficult driving, just a horrible couple of hours to come. So hence the yellow warning in place.
Yeah, put the furniture away. And what levels of disruption are we looking at here,
So the
Jo?
next few hours, we've got those very strong gusty winds, heavy rain across the region. It's likely there'll be perhaps some localised flooding, but it's really those winds that will cause the problems. So just be very aware if you're out and about. It's so hard to predict where branches will come down, but be aware if you're driving. Lots of leaves and perhaps a little bit of debris here and there around the northwest overnight tonight and into the early hours of tomorrow morning. So if you're travelling first thing, the rush hour tomorrow morning could be rather nasty as well.
Joe, thanks very much for that. You have been warned. OK, time for sport now. And 4 of our sides are in action tonight in the 3rd round of the Carabao Cup. Everton, fresh from their first Premier League win of the season at the weekend, take on Aston Villa. Blackburn Rovers face Cardiff City. Liverpool play Leicester City at Anfield, while Manchester City head to Newcastle.
Yeah, they're all hoping to join Burnley in the next round. Vincent Kompany's side, who've yet to register a win in the Premier League, found some goal-scoring form as they beat League Two Salford City 4-0 away from home. The reigning cup holders are also safely through to round 4. Manchester United beat Crystal Palace 3-0 at Old Trafford. Alejandro Garnacho amongst the goals after being recalled to the starting lineup.
The team like that I like him. But also we have to demand him. We have to push him because he can act on a very high level, but he has to show it every day.
Well, it wasn't a completely successful night for Manchester United. Their under-21 side were beaten 8-1 by Bolton Wanderers in the EFL Trophy. A great night for Bolton, who are reigning cup holders, clearly hoping for another trip to Wembley this season.
Well, next to a wonderful gesture by one of our football clubs. Accrington Stanley welcomed more than 1,000 children to their stadium today from 39 schools in the local area, and each of them received their own replica jersey and a match ticket. It's something the club does every year for the local community, and they hope it might just encourage a few of them to become Accrington supporters.
It's been great getting T-shirts and some gift bags, but the best thing is just getting to be here. I've never been to a stadium before, so being here, it's just amazing.
Amazing.
Why is it so amazing?
Because I've never been to here and it's really good.
Are you going to support them now then?
Yeah.
Give us a cheer.
Yay!
I think this is the 7th year we've held this shirt giveaway. Every year it seems to get bigger and bigger. It's great to give back to the community. All the kids this year are putting their shirts straight on as well, so hopefully they'll go home, speak to their mums and dads and aunts and uncles, big brothers and sisters, and let them know that they want to come and watch us on a Saturday afternoon, which would be brilliant.
Yeah, well done, Accrington Stanley. Why don't they all do it? That's such a great idea.
Do you know what, Lucy? That is not a cheap thing to do for a club like Accrington Stanley, but you see the smiles on the faces there.
Well, you get them young and you get them for life. It's worth every penny, isn't it?
Absolutely it is. Well done, Accrington. Next tonight, he's one of Rugby League's greatest ever players, and half a century after hanging up his boots, he continues to be an inspiration to many.
Yeah, the former Wigan winger Billy Boston is now in his 90th year. He spent the last decade living with dementia, and today he's been lending his support to an event in Wigan, a day of music, of singing and dancing for those with the same condition.
Our correspondent David Chisnall is at Wigan and Lee College for us.
Yeah, you can see a table full of Wigan Warriors legends, and right at the centre of it, Billy Boston, one of the greatest rugby league players that has ever graced the game. And we are here at the Music in Mind session at the Dementia Friendly Cafe, a session that is really for people affected by dementia. I'm delighted to say that joining us now is another Wigan Warriors legend, Colin Clark, as well. Colin, why are you guys here today?
Well, basically, I got invited by one of the organisers to come down. I brought some pals with me. Billy Boston, Bill Francis, Colin Tyra and a few other lads, and another good friend of mine, Roy Greaves, who played for Bolton Wanderers. I think we're all aware of the cause of dementia in sport, and if we can make the awareness there for everybody to see and help, then that's good.
Fantastic. Colin, lovely to see you today. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, we'll have a chat with Ian as well, who's one of the organisers here. Ian, tell us about this session that you've set up. Why do you do this?
Well, we've been doing it for about 7 years now, and we wanted to do something as musicians that could help the community. So we feel that music, singing, dancing is a great way of bringing people together, but we realise especially for those living with the dementia and Alzheimer's and their families and carers as well. So we come here and we do familiar songs where people can really sing, partake, and at the end of the session people leave here feeling uplifted, stimulated, and just feeling far better than they did when they came initially.
And you've got Wigan Warriors players, past and present here today, so what does it mean to have them here?
We've got the legend Billy Boston with us and many others as well, so we really appreciate their support today as well.
Ian, thanks so much. Let's have a quick chat with Dorothy as well over here. Dorothy has been using the service and using this session. Dorothy, thanks so much for chatting to us today. Tell us why you come down here.
Well, I were bringing my husband because he had Alzheimer's, but he's passed away now, so in April. So I'm still coming because the company's nice and, you know, the guys are nice that run it. And it gets me out, and I'm not on my own the same, am I? Yeah.
I think we're going to have a bit of music now, okay, guys? If it's all right with you, we're going to finish this. Well, it's all about music this session, so it's only right that we also hear a bit of music. Guys, over to you.
1, 2, 3, 4. Sweet Caroline, sing it! Good times never seem so good.
I want to hear more of that music. Lovely report.
Such a brilliant thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks to Dorothy for talking to us there. Absolutely brilliant report. Okay, well, next up, insects, but don't be scared. We're travelling back in time 100 years to learn about the extraordinary life of Marigold Webb.
Yes, the fictional character, who is an expert in her field of insects, is also deaf. She's the idea of Laura Crowe, who wrote a play based in the Roaring Twenties.
Yeah, Laura used her own experience after losing her hearing at the age of 2. She wrote the play Earwig, highlighting the challenges of having a disability, when in her case she was encouraged to hide her deafness. Elaine Wilcox reports.
The Stevensons are coming over, and that's an end to it. And don't drop your T's. You sound like a flower seller.
Earwig tells the story of a world-renowned insect expert in the Roaring Twenties. She's deaf, and it's a fight to be heard.
Flower seller. Now that's something I could have done. Could I? I had a cactus once. Died. Perhaps I'm just better at handling dead things.
The fact that she's a woman trying to make her way in a very male-dominated scientific field of entomology, married to a very unpleasant man that belittles her throughout most of the play.
Laura Crowe wrote and stars in the show and knows the challenges her character Marigold faces. She became deaf at 2, caused by meningitis. In the 90s, signing wasn't available and she was discouraged from even wearing hearing aids.
They'd just draw attention to the fact that I was deaf, and because I was managing so well, no one would need to know, so don't wear hearing aids, don't draw attention to it.
You invited the Stevensons over.
So, pardon?
You invited the Stevensons over.
Pardon?
You invited the Stevensons over, damn it, you told me last week.
After one of our shows, there was an audience member who came up to me at the end and just looked at me and just went, no, I did not like you.
Ben Hines learnt some sign to play Dolly, Marigold's best friend, and her odious husband, showing it's time to speak up.
Women weren't listened to, they were sidelined, they were thought of a bit stupid and they should just maintain in the house.
And do you get many boos?
Not boos, but there's a few like, oh God, no, he didn't just say that.
Same lamp, same desk, same Mrs. Peters banging on the wall when you're up too late.
Not anymore. The old bat died.
How?
Nothing will ever be fully accessible to everybody, but we can do more.
Artists say if it happens in theatres, the world becomes more accessible.
It's like Time and Again, who are Manchester-based, but it's happening across the country, are really thinking about how they support access from the start.
If a very small company and very small show like us can build in things like integrated BSL, captions, projections, it's possible for everyone to do it, and it should become standard throughout all theatre productions.
The reviews say Earwig is bold and funny and also challenges society to do more. Elaine Wilcox, ITV News, Manchester.
And Earwig is on at the Lowry Theatre studio tomorrow and Friday night with a streamed online performance on Friday too.
Yeah, looks great. Now the latest on that crazy weather. Here's Joe.
Why do I need a shower? I've been out in the rain.
The faster you go, the sooner you'll be out. You'll save water too.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Thank you. A very good evening. Our first named storm of the season, Storm Agnes, already bringing heavy rain to the northwest this evening, accompanied by gale-force winds, especially along our coastline. It will be an unsettled night. You'll hear that wind rattling around the houses over the next few hours. But tomorrow promises to be drier, brighter, and by the close of play tomorrow evening, winds will be easing off. However, more rain will be moving in for tomorrow night. The deep low pressure system, which has been named Agnes, has been sweeping towards us from the southwest this afternoon, increasing cloud amounts, rain being introduced to the northwest, and some of that rather heavy for a time this evening. No doubt a difficult rush hour accompanied by those strong and gusty winds, which will continue as we head through tonight. Over the next few hours, pulses of rain will continue to feed across the region, 1 or 2 heavy bursts, but it's that wind that's the real feature. Incredibly strong along Irish sea coast, around the Isle of Man, no doubt some rather large waves to come, and that will continue to rattle around the houses tonight. And in terms of rain, well, that eases off a little bit. It'll turn more showery, drier by dawn, and with all the cloud cover around a mild night, 13 or 14 degrees, with a few breaks as we get towards tomorrow morning. On to tomorrow. The sun is up at 7:06 and it will set at 6:56 tomorrow evening. An improving picture for many of us during tomorrow morning, perhaps cloudy at first, with 1 or 2 showers around, but brightening up through the middle part of the morning. Still bear in mind it's going to be quite windy on the region's higher routes during the rush hour tomorrow and of course along our coastline, but winds will gradually ease down. Lots of dry weather through the day, some brightness, average temperatures, more rain tomorrow night.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Thanks, Joe. That's it for Granada Reports for tonight.
Tomorrow, though, we speak to the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, not surprisingly. One of the issues on the agenda, what is happening with HS2?
For now, though, have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.